Well, thank you very, very much indeed for the welcome. Could I, first of all, say thanks to the committee for the opportunity of sharing at this Bangor Worldwide Missionary Convention. And it is a tremendous privilege for me to have a very, very dear friend in the person of King Billy. And Billy's going to be telling us something about his people. But before he does that, I want to read just a couple of verses of Scripture. You've been looking at Isaiah these mornings, and I want to read a few verses from Isaiah chapter 41 from verse 17, verses that I often turn to. And this is what it says: when the poor and the needy seek water, and there is none, and their tongue faileth for thirst, I, the Lord, will hear them. I, the God of Israel, will not forsake them. I will open rivers in high places and fountains in the midst of the valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water and the dry land springs. I will plant in the wilderness the cedar, the acacia, the myrtle, and the oil tree. I will set in the desert the fir tree and the pine and the box tree together, that they may see and know and consider and understand that the hand of the Lord hath done this. The Lord bless his word to our hearts. It'd be a terrible predicament to be in if you had no water, wouldn't it? And your tongue was feeling for thirst. If somebody gave you a drop, you'd be grateful. If somebody gave you a cup, you'd be grateful. If they gave you a bucket full, you'd probably drink some and pour the rest over your head. But that's not what the Lord says he's going to do. He says he'll open rivers of blessing. And that's what we want to see, rivers of blessing reaching out to those in our own land and beyond, and to the people who live among us, who are often neglected, despised, forgotten, to the gypsies. And Billy, we noticed all these lovely flags, and then we thought there's one missing. So Billy brought the gypsy flag for us. Have you seen it before? Can we hold it up properly there, Billy?
That's it there. Can you hear me? Yeah. This particular flag is a bit tatty because this is the flag. We flew on Appleby Fair for quite a few years, but we've retired it now. But it's got symbolic meaning to us as gypsy people. And this was created by the World Gypsy Council in the early 1960s, about 62, 63. And the blue represents heaven. The green represents the forests and fields of earth. And the 16-spoke cartwheel in the middle, the chakra, that represents our nomadic freedom to roam freely between heaven and earth. So it's extremely symbolic to us. This is not a flag of a country. This is the flag of a nation, a world nation, because we are all over the world. And we're extremely proud of it.
Billy, that's great. And we want to bring them not just under the blue sky, but to the heaven of heavens, to the eternal home. That's our heart's desire. It's my pleasure to introduce you, Billy. Welcome them to Bangor tonight. Eh?
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. I've got a short time to give you a little quick history lesson, a little bit on where we came from, who we are, how we come to be here in the British Isles, and our culture, our beliefs, and our language. My people left northern India about 1,100 years ago. The stories are what's been handed down through the times. We were at war with the Mughals. The Mughal Empire invaded where we came from. And it's right on the border between India and Pakistan now. It was the Indus Valley. And we were driven out by the Mughals, and we were scattered to the four corners of the earth. Some went down and back into the Middle East, some went west, some went east, some went north. We scattered in every direction. And some of us, my people, went west. The nucleus of our people now are in Hungary and Romania. But some of us kept moving west and began arriving on these shores in numbers about 600-700 years ago. But there is evidence, we read in the 11th century, archaeological evidence, DNA. But when we got here, arrived on these shores, arrived in Britain, people thought we were Egyptians, hence the word gypsy. It's short for Egyptian. Doesn't bother us. There's nothing wrong with the Egyptians. And over 600 or 700 years, you get used to anything. But the proper word is Roma, hence Roma Gypsy or Roma. And amongst the Roma, there's a lot of tribes. We're a very diverse people. There's hundreds of different groups amongst us. But amongst us, the 5 major tribes is Sinti, Rom, Manush, Calderesh, and Kali. My tribe is Sinti. The predominant tribe in Britain is Sinti. In Germany, it's Sinti. In France, it's the Calderesh and the Rom. In Eastern Europe, it's the Calderesh, mainly Calderesh. Northern Scandinavia, it's the Manush. And the language we speak is Romanus, and it's based on an ancient Indian Sanskrit. But for years, language professors couldn't understand where the Greek words in our language came from, and the Persian words. But a cousin of mine, he's gone now, God rest his soul, Davy Jones, he went to India to find out. Him and some of my other cousins, half a dozen of them went, and they met with the gypsy representatives in India. And they said, yes, this is where you came from, 100%. This is where you came from. But we didn't come from here. They said, we came here from the north, down through the Khyber Pass from Afghanistan. But they said, we didn't come from India originally. So they said we came through Persia into Afghanistan, down through the Khyber Pass into India, but we're not from India originally. So that, again, draw the blank, it didn't solve the question of where did we come from. The Greek gypsies and the Macedonian gypsies say that they are the original gypsies. And they say, which explains where the Greek words in our language come from. Like when we count, for instance, yek, dui, trim, star, panch, shaw, ester, octo, Indian desh. Ester and octo is Greek for 7 and 8. 8 octopus. And we've got lots of other Greek words in our language, like road. The Greeks say drummus for road, we say drum. There's lots of Greek words in it, but we didn't know where they came from. So the Greek gypsies and the Macedonian gypsies said, we were the ones who went to northern India. And we went to northern India with Alexander the Great. We were Alexander's cavalry, which explains a lot. And they said, we went through Persia, through Afghanistan, down to the Khyber Pass, and Alexander left the gypsy people, obviously they didn't call them gypsy people in them days, but left them behind to rule in his name. So the gypsies have said, in Greece and Macedonia have said this for years. So in 2019, I was in Krakow, Poland. We went back there for the Auschwitz, because we remember the Holocaust on the 2nd of August, because it's when they murdered the last gypsies in Auschwitz, 4,254 of them, mostly women and children. So we remember on the 2nd of August, and we go back there as a pilgrimage to remember. And whilst I was there, I was talking to the Greek gypsies. So I said, if we came from Greece, and you as Greeks, and he said, yeah. I said, then why are you not like the Greeks? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you're more like me. You've got more common with me. And all the rest of the gypsies here at this gathering, all the gypsies are here from all over the world, even from Manhattan and New York, from every corner of the earth, I said. They've come to remember the Holocaust. But I said, you aren't Greek. You're not like a non-gypsy, we call them a gorger, which means white person. And I said, why aren't you like the Greek gorgers? If we come from Greece, why aren't all of us like the Greek gorgers? But he said, we didn't come from Greece originally. So I said, here we go again. So he said, we arrived on the shores of Greece thousands of years ago and we was taken as slaves. And we were slaves for a long time, but eventually become a respected part of Greek society. So I said, well, where did you come from before this? He said, we don't know. But the one theory is, and he did agree with me, and it's something we're realizing more and more and more lately, is a lot of our customs and traditions and beliefs, and we're only just realizing this, are Jewish. And for centuries, there's been a story going around, a legend, that we're one of the lost tribes of Israel. So I thought, right, if I went to Israel, I would never ever find them. I don't know if those gypsies were there, wouldn't I? Anyways, but as God works in mysterious ways, Ronnie rung for me one day, I said, do you want to go to Israel? I said, definitely I'll go to Israel. I said, but what also, not just to find the gypsies, but on a pilgrimage as well, obviously, being Christian. I said, but I would love to find the gypsies in Israel. He said, I know where they are. He said, I know they are. I said, you kidding me, Ronnie? He said, no. So I went with Ronnie to Israel, and he introduced me to a lady called Amun. She's their representative, their spokesperson. Speaks perfect English. But we were supposed to meet Amun at 6 o'clock. And we were late getting back from a day out sightseeing and going to all the sites and everything. And we got back about 7:30, and Ronnie and one or two of the other Irish lads on the bus said to me, she won't be here, Billy. She will be. She'll be there. She'll wait. And when we got off the bus, and was it the Grand Court in the Grand Court Hotel in Jerusalem? It's the busiest hotel I've ever been in my life. And the foyer was hundreds of people in it, checking in, checking out. People coming back from tours, hundreds of people. And Ronnie and a couple of these other Irish lads said, you'll never find them in it. Now, if they're in here, Billy, you won't find her. I said, if she's in here, I'll spot her. And she'll spot me. Anyways, we stood on the top of the steps looking back. This big, massive foyer. I said, that's her over there. That's her moon. And Ronnie said, well, do you know Simone? I said, she's looking that way. Anyway, she turned around and she said, me. And she took the arm of a young woman. And this young lass was with her. And she pointed to me. And then we made our way through the crowd. And we met each other and we hugged each other. I said, it's Simone. She said, Billy. She said, how are you doing, Billy? How are you doing, brother? I haven't seen you for a long time. I said, no, I've never seen you for a long time, Simone. But anyways, I said, will you stay? I'm sorry for being late. Would you stay and have dinner with me? Yes, she said, I'll stay. So Ronnie's listening, and one or two other people on the trip, all Irish people, and they're saying, and Ronnie said, can we get around a big table so we can listen to this conversation? I said, I'd love for you to sit around and listen to it. So we've got a big table, and they all go on small tables and chairs around us. And the first thing I did to her, when we sat down, I spoke to her in Romanus. And I thought, if she hasn't got the Indian Sanskrit in the language, this is where we came from. Because she hadn't been to India, and her version of Romanus won't be infected with the Sanskrit. But when I spoke to her in the Sanskrit and in the Romanus, she replied to me in it. And I said, Amun, I can't explain to you how happy I am to find you in Jerusalem, I said, I'm ecstatic, but I'm disappointed in another way. She said, why, Billy? I said, because I thought maybe this is where we came from. And when I spoke to you, you've got the Sanskrit in the language. Yes, she said, because we come from northern India. She said, we were driven out by the Mughals. I said, we was too. She said, my tribe's Sinti. I said, my tribe's Sinti. And she hugged me and she kissed me. She started to cry. And she looked at Ronnie and she looked at everybody else sat around the table. She said, I haven't seen Billy for 1,100 years, but he's still my brother. And I said, how did you come to be here, Moon? Well, she said, we didn't come from here, but we came back here. Because she said, when we left northern India, we made our way back here because we thought we were finding our way home. So it's not perfect. Like the Jewish people, with the Jewish people, everything was written. With our people, it was all word of mouth. It's all passed down. Nothing was written. But where the Jewish people have put the pieces into their puzzle, and they've got the plan in front of them, they've got the map in front of them, we've got 2 or 3 missing. And I think by going to Jerusalem with Ronnie, I put one piece in. But it's not perfect, not just yet. We've got a long way to go. And what I'm trying to say to people in here tonight is, we aren't, as the media would have you believe, we aren't society's rejects. We haven't been kicked off some housing estate somewhere for not paying our rent or being antisocial. We're an ancient people with an ancient culture, an ancient language that goes back thousands of years. And when we begin arriving in the British Isles, we came across another tribe of people, and nomadic people, similar to ourselves, very different but a bit similar, which is travellers. Travellers are completely different people from us. But we went alongside them and we got on well with them because they were nomadic people and they were horse traders. And over the centuries, we've suffered the same prejudice, same persecution, and we've only had each other to lean on. So that's why people confuse us with travellers. But like I say, I could really go on if he had time. It'd take me an hour or so. I could really go really deep into it. There's a lot to talk about. But at the end of the day, always remember this: without the Lord, nothing is possible. And with the Lord, everything is possible. And I do know that the Lord will guide me back one day, and He will show me, and we will find out. A perfect example of that is when I'm talking to the Greek gypsies, and they told me that they didn't know where they come from, and we got on about perhaps we were one of the lost tribes of Israel, which the legend has it that was one of the tribe of Dan. Just a few days later, I got a phone call from Ronnie. Would you like to go to Israel? And it just, little things like that, it makes you realize that there is a God and there is a Lord. And He was trying to take me there through Ronnie. If it hadn't been for Ronnie, I wouldn't have got there, and I wouldn't have found the gypsies in Old Jerusalem. So have faith, and we will have faith, and eventually, hopefully, we'll find our way back. I'd like to hand you back over to Ronnie now.
That was kushti.
Which means marvellous, wonderful.
Billy, thank you. It's very interesting where your people came from. It's very interesting how they're still nomadic and traveling. But you know the most important thing that burns in my heart? Where are they going to? When the traveling days are over, to eternity, and they need Christ as their Saviour. So that's what drives us on. That's why we go off to Portugal with the shoe boxes at Christmas for the gypsy kids down there, and why we search for them in Ballinasloe and wherever. Billy, thanks very much for coming.
No problem.
God bless you, my brother.
Could I just say something in my language?
Go ahead.
Nais tu que and to best back to law and Jad over lesser means thank you all very much. May you be blessed. And may God go with you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.